I stood on platform 7 with my duffel bag at my feet, watching Emma laugh with Daniel. The kind of laugh she used to save for me. Head thrown back, hand on his forearm, eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in months. My phone buzzed. Her text. "Daniel's going through something. Can you take the later train? I'll meet you at your parents' tomorrow morning instead." I picked up my bag. The 347 to Riverside pulled into the station with a mechanical groan. I walked toward it without looking back, my footsteps steady against the concrete platform. Behind me, I heard Emma's voice cut through the ambient noise. "Liam! Liam, wait! Where are you going?" I stepped onto the train. The doors closed between us with a pneumatic hiss that felt final. Through the window, I watched her mouth form words I couldn't hear, Daniel standing awkwardly behind her with his hands shoved in his pockets. She pressed her palm against the glass. I found a seat facing away from the platform and pulled out my phone. The first call was to my parents. "Change of plans, coming alone. Emma won't be joining me for Thanksgiving." My mother's hesitation lasted exactly 2 seconds. "Is everything all right?" "It will be." I ended the call and opened my messages. Emma's texts were already flooding in. "What just happened?" "Liam, this is crazy." "Daniel needed to talk. I was going to be an hour max." "Can you please just answer me?" I typed one message. "We're done. I'll have my things out of the apartment by Sunday. Don't contact me again." Then I blocked her number. The countryside rolled past the window in November browns and grays. My reflection stared back at me. 32 years old, software engineer, recently promoted to senior developer. On paper, my life looked exactly as planned. Stable career, long-term relationship. Shared apartment in the city, future talks about marriage and kids, all of it evaporating with each mile the train traveled. I should have felt something more than this cold clarity, but the truth was, I'd felt it cracking for months. It started in September. Emma reconnected with Daniel at her college reunion, her childhood friend who'd moved back to town after a divorce. Suddenly, our Friday nights were interrupted by his emergencies. Our weekend plans postponed because he really needed someone to talk to. Our conversations cut short because he'd sent a meme she had to respond to immediately. I'd raised it once. Just once. "Emma, I feel like Daniel's becoming a priority over us." She'd looked at me like I'd suggested something obscene. "He's going through a divorce, Liam. He needs support. You're being insecure." Insecure. The word she used to dismiss any boundary I tried to set. When I asked her not to text him during our date nights. Insecure. When I mentioned that 3-hour phone calls with him at 11 p.m. felt inappropriate. Insecure. When I said I was uncomfortable with her canceling our anniversary dinner to comfort him after, he'd had a bad day. Insecure and controlling. I'd stopped raising it after that. What was the point? Every conversation ended with me being the villain for having feelings. So I watched as I slowly became the third wheel in my own relationship, always understanding, always accommodating, always waiting for Emma to choose me just once. Until today. Until she looked me in the eye at that train station and asked me to rearrange my holiday plans we'd made 2 months ago. Because Daniel was going through something. He was always going through something. The thing about being the understanding boyfriend is that people mistake your patience for infinite flexibility. They start to believe you'll bend forever without breaking. Emma had looked genuinely shocked when I picked up my bag, like the possibility that I might actually leave had never occurred to her. I pulled out my laptop and opened my cloud storage. It took me 15 minutes to change all my passwords and remove Emma's access from everything. Streaming accounts, shared documents, cloud storage, utilities dashboard. Another 10 minutes to draft an email to our landlord about breaking the lease, offering to pay the penalty fee myself. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Emma, calling from someone else's phone. I declined it. Another call came through immediately. Declined. A third. Declined. A text from my friend Jackson appeared. Emma just called me freaking out. Says you left her at the station and won't answer. What happened? I typed back. She chose Daniel over me for the last time. I'm done. Don't give her your phone to call me. Holy shit, man. You okay? Yeah, I should have done this months ago. By the time the train pulled into Riverside, I had a list of 12 things I needed to handle. Apartment, shared bank account, utilities, car insurance, the gym membership we split, the vacation we'd booked for January. I opened a note file and started drafting action items, assigning deadlines to each one. My father picked me up from the station. He took one look at my face and asked, "Where's Emma?" "Not coming. We broke up." He didn't ask questions during the 30-minute drive home, which I appreciated. My mother was less restrained. The second I walked through the door, she pulled me into the kitchen. "What happened? You two were fine last week." I set my bag down and told her the abbreviated version, Emma ditching me at the station, the months of being deprioritized, the pattern I'd ignored until I couldn't anymore. My mother listened, her expression hardening with each sentence. When I finished, she said something that surprised me. "Good. You should have left her 3 months ago when she missed your work celebration because Daniel needed her to help him pick out furniture." I'd forgotten about that. Emma had promised to attend the dinner my company threw when I made senior developer. At the last minute, she'd canceled because Daniel was having a panic attack about choosing a couch. I'd gone alone, smiled through colleagues asking where my girlfriend was, and pretended it didn't bother me. "You've been too patient," my mother continued. "Your father and I have watched you shrink yourself for months. Whatever you need to do now, we'll support you." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright. I helped my father prep the turkey while my mother made her famous stuffing. My younger sister Caroline showed up around noon with her husband, Ben. She'd heard the news from Mom. "I never liked Emma," Caroline announced, stealing a piece of celery from the cutting board. "She always had this way of making you seem like you were overreacting to things that were genuinely messed up." "Caroline," my mother warned. "What? It's true. Remember when she accidentally donated his grandfather's watch to Goodwill and said he was being materialistic for being upset?" I'd forgotten that too. The watch had been the only thing I'd wanted from Grandpa Joe's estate. Emma had been cleaning one weekend and put it in a donation box without asking. When I'd been devastated, she'd told me I was too attached to objects and that it was just a watch. How many things had I forgiven that I shouldn't have? My phone buzzed continuously throughout dinner. Emma, using different numbers. Emma's best friend, Rachel. Emma's sister. Even Daniel sent a message. "Hey man, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Emma's really torn up. Maybe give her a chance to explain." I blocked each number as it appeared. Over pumpkin pie, Carolyn asked the question everyone was clearly thinking. "So what's your plan?" "I'm getting my own place. I've already contacted 3 landlords about apartments available December 1st. I'm viewing them Tuesday morning." "That fast?" "The lease is in both our names. I want a clean break. I'll pay the penalty, take my stuff, and be gone." My father, who'd been quiet most of the day, finally spoke. "You need help moving? I've got a truck." "Ben, you free next weekend?" "Absolutely," Ben said. It was settled. 1 week from today, I'd be out of that apartment and out of Emma's life. But first, I had to go back. Sunday morning, I took the early train back to the city. Emma didn't know I was coming. I'd deliberately kept her blocked, let her stew in the uncertainty. Part of me, the petty part I wasn't proud of, wanted her to feel a fraction of what I'd felt watching her choose Daniel over me again and again. I arrived at our apartment at 9 a.m. My key still worked. The living room was a mess. Tissues everywhere, empty wine bottles on the coffee table, Emma's laptop open to our photo albums. She emerged from the bedroom in sweatpants and one of my hoodies, her eyes red-rimmed. "Liam," her voice cracked. "You came back. For my things." I moved past her toward our shared closet. She followed. "Please, can we just talk? I don't understand why you're doing this." I pulled my suitcase from the top shelf. "I'm done being your backup plan, Emma." "Backup plan? You're not... Liam, you're everything to me." I started folding shirts mechanically. "If that were true, you wouldn't have asked me to rearrange my holiday plans so you could comfort Daniel. Again. He was having a crisis." "He's always having a crisis, and you're always there for him. But where were you when I needed you?" I kept my voice level, factual. "You missed my promotion celebration. You canceled our anniversary. You've cut short every conversation we've had in the last 2 months because he texted. You asked me to take a later train home for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, Emma. Because Daniel needed you. I was being a good friend, at the expense of being my partner." I zipped up the suitcase. "You want to know the moment I knew we were done? It wasn't at the train station. It was 3 weeks ago when we were having dinner, and you checked your phone 17 times in 30 minutes. Every single time it was Daniel. And when I asked you to put it away, you said I was being controlling." She flinched. "I didn't realize. No, you didn't. Because you stopped considering how your actions affected me. Every time I raised a concern, you called me insecure. Every boundary I tried to set, you treated like an attack. I got tired of being made to feel crazy for having basic needs in a relationship." I moved to the bathroom, collecting my toiletries. Emma trailed behind me, crying openly now. "I can change. I'll set better boundaries with Daniel. It's too late." I met her eyes in the mirror. "I don't trust you anymore. And without trust, there's nothing left to save." "Liam, please. 5 years. We've been together 5 years. You're just going to throw that away?" I turned to face her. "I'm not the one who threw it away. You did. Every single time you chose him over me. Every time you minimized my feelings. Every time you made me feel like I was asking for too much by wanting my girlfriend to prioritize our relationship. I love you. Maybe, but you don't respect me. And I'm done accepting love without respect." I carried my bags to the front door. Emma grabbed my arm, desperate now. "Where are you going to go?" "That's not your concern anymore. At least tell me, is there any chance, in the future, could we—" "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "Emma, I mean this with complete sincerity. I hope you figure out what you want. But I won't be here when you do. Don't call me, don't text me, don't show up at my workplace. We're done." I walked out, closing the door on 5 years, and the sound of her sobbing. In the hallway, I exhaled slowly. My hands were steady. My chest felt light in a way it hadn't in months. I'd expected to feel guilty or sad or something approximating regret. Instead, I felt free. The next week moved quickly. I viewed 3 apartments on Tuesday and signed a lease on a 1-bedroom in a different neighborhood by Wednesday. It was smaller than the place Emma and I had shared, but it was mine. No shared memories. No ghosts. The apartment was in an older building with character, Exposed brick in the living room, hardwood floors that creaked in the right places, a kitchen window that looked out onto a tree-lined street. The landlord, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, showed me around with obvious pride. "It's quiet here," she said. "Good neighbors. They keep to themselves, but they're friendly. You seem like you'd fit right in." I signed the papers that afternoon. Jackson helped me set up utilities. Caroline donated an old coffee table and some kitchen supplies. My father and Ben showed up Saturday morning with the truck, as promised. Emma wasn't home when we arrived to move my furniture. I'd planned it that way, texting her from an app that masked my number to let her know when we'd be there so she could make herself scarce. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Please reconsider. I miss you. We can work this out if you just give me another chance. I'll do anything." I left it where it lay. We loaded my bed, dresser, desk, and half the living room furniture. The stuff we'd bought together, I left. The couch where we'd watched countless movies, the dining table where we'd hosted dinner parties, the bookshelf we'd assembled together one frustrating Sunday afternoon. Clean break, no entanglements. My father noticed me staring at the bookshelf. "You want to take it?" "No. It belongs to that life. I'm starting fresh." By 3 p.m., the truck was packed. I walked through the apartment one last time, making sure I hadn't forgotten anything. In the bedroom, I noticed something on Emma's nightstand I hadn't seen before. A framed photo of her and Daniel from her college years, both of them laughing at some long-ago party. It hadn't been there a month ago. She'd put it up recently, probably after I'd left. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Even in crisis, even while begging me to come back, she'd chosen to keep his photo by her bed. I left my keys on the counter and walked out. My new apartment was on the 4th floor of an older building with good bones and large windows. It took us 3 hours to move everything in. The space felt empty with my minimal furniture, but that was okay. I'd fill it slowly, deliberately, with things that were mine. Caroline ordered pizza. We ate sitting on the floor, the space echoing with our voices and the promise of something new. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Lighter," I said. And it was true. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my empty living room watching the lights from the street filter through my windows. My phone was silent. Emma still blocked, her friends blocked, Daniel blocked. For the first time in months, no one was demanding my emotional energy. No one was making me feel guilty for existing. No one was calling me insecure for having needs. I ordered Chinese food and ate it straight from the containers. Emma had always insisted on using plates, said eating from the containers was unsophisticated. I smiled at the petty rebellion of it. Over the next month, I fell into a new rhythm. I started going to the gym at 6 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. to avoid the crowds. I picked up running again, something I'd stopped doing when Emma said she felt lonely during my morning runs. I joined a rock climbing gym and went every Tuesday and Thursday. I read 3 books in 2 weeks. The climbing gym became my sanctuary. There was something meditative about the focus it required. Every move calculated. Every grip deliberate. You couldn't climb while thinking about other things. It demanded complete presence. I met people there, not friends immediately, but familiar faces. The regular at 6 Up on Tuesdays, who always tackled the hardest routes. The instructor who offered tips without being condescending. The group of college students who cheered each other on with genuine enthusiasm. One evening, a guy about my age approached me after I'd finished a particularly difficult climb. "Nice work on that overhang. That route's been kicking my ass for weeks." "Thanks. It took me about 6 tries to figure out the sequence." "I'm Alex," he said, extending his hand. "Liam." We ended up climbing together for the next hour, swapping beta and encouragement. He invited me to join his Tuesday night group. I accepted. It felt good to make friends on my own terms, separate from Emma's social circle, separate from our shared history. These people knew me only as Liam, the guy who was decent at climbing and terrible at remembering to chalk his hands. They didn't know about Emma. They didn't ask why I'd suddenly appeared in their climbing gym in December. They just accepted me as I was. I didn't date, didn't even think about it. The idea of letting someone close felt exhausting. Instead, I focused on work, on hobbies I'd abandoned, on friendships I'd neglected. Jackson invited me to his weekly trivia night. I met his friends, good people with easy laughs and no drama. There was Tom, a high school teacher with an encyclopedic knowledge of 80s music. Jennifer, a nurse who could answer any medical question and had a wicked sense of humor. Kyle and his wife Amanda, who finished each other's sentences and somehow made it charming instead of annoying. I started going regularly. Our team, the aggressively mediocre, rarely won but always had fun. They absorbed me into their group without ceremony, another person at the table, another voice calling out answers. "You're good at the geography questions," Jennifer noted one night after I'd correctly identified Burkina Faso's capital. "I used to want to travel more," I said. "Maybe I will now." "What stopped you before?" Tom asked. "My ex wasn't interested in going most places." "Ah," Amanda said knowingly. "One of those." They didn't push for details. I appreciated that. I took a solo trip to Colorado for a long weekend in January, something I'd always wanted to do but Emma had never been interested in. She'd always said Colorado was too outdoorsy and that she'd be bored. I'd suggested it 3 times over the years. Each time she'd countered with beach destinations or European cities, places she wanted to go. We'd gone to those places. We'd never made it to Colorado. The mountain air was sharp and clean. I hiked 14 miles over 2 days, pushing myself until my legs burned and my lungs ached. I reached a summit at sunrise on the 2nd day and stood there alone, watching the sun paint the peaks in shades of gold and pink. My phone had no service. No one could reach me. It was the most at peace I'd felt in years. I took photos, but not many. Mostly, I just existed in the moment, letting the immensity of the landscape dwarf my problems into their proper perspective. A relationship had ended. It happened to people every day. The mountains didn't care. The sun rose anyway. Life went on. When I returned, I felt centered in a way I hadn't anticipated. Christmas came. My mother asked if I was okay spending it without Emma. "Mom, I haven't thought about Emma in 3 weeks." It was mostly true. Sometimes I'd see something that reminded me of her. A song, a restaurant, someone with her laugh. But it didn't hurt. It was just a memory, something that happened to someone I used to be. We spent Christmas at Caroline's house. She and Ben had bought a place the previous year, a modest 2-story in the suburbs with a yard and good schools nearby. They weren't pregnant yet, but the intention was clear in the spare bedroom they'd designated as the future nursery. Ben made his famous prime rib. Caroline handled everything else with the efficiency of a military operation. We played board games after dinner, drank too much wine, and laughed until our sides hurt. At one point, Caroline pulled me aside into her kitchen. "You seem really good, Liam. Like, actually good. Not just pretending to be okay, good." "I am. It's weird. I thought it would take longer to get over 5 years, but honestly, I'm happier now than I was for the last year of that relationship." "That's because you were already grieving it while you were in it," she said. "You were mourning what you thought you had while watching it disappear in real time. By the time you left, you'd already processed most of it." She was right. The hardest part hadn't been leaving. The hardest part had been the months before, watching Emma slip away while pretending everything was fine. In January, I got a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Liam, it's Daniel. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I thought you should know Emma and I aren't talking anymore. She told me what happened at the station and I feel terrible. I never meant to come between you two. I was going through a rough time and relied on her too much. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. She didn't value what she had with you. Also, I want you to know, nothing romantic ever happened between us. I know how it looked, but I swear it was just friendship on my end. I don't know what it was on hers. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. You deserved better. I read it twice, and then deleted it without responding. His guilt wasn't my problem to absolve. Whether something physical had happened between them was irrelevant. Emma had still chosen him over me repeatedly, still prioritized his needs over mine, still made me feel like I was crazy for objecting to it. The emotional affair was betrayal enough. Rachel, Emma's best friend, cornered me at the grocery store in February. I'd moved to a different neighborhood specifically to avoid this, but apparently the universe had other plans. You broke her, you know, Rachel said without preamble, stepping in front of my cart. She's been a mess since November. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? Liam, she loved you. She made a mistake, and you just walked away. I set down the cereal box I'd been examining. Rachel, I'm going to say this once. Emma didn't make a mistake. She made a series of choices over several months that showed me exactly where I stood in her priorities. When I communicated how that made me feel, she dismissed me. When I set boundaries, she called me controlling. I didn't break her. I stopped letting her break me. She wants to talk to you. She's been asking me to reach out. And yet she hasn't respected my explicit request to be left alone. What does that tell you? Rachel's expression flickered with something, recognition, maybe. She says she's changed. Good for her. She can show that to her next boyfriend. I'm not interested. You're being cruel. No, I'm being clear. There's a difference. Please respect my boundaries even if Emma couldn't. I walked away before she could respond. My hands shook slightly as I loaded groceries into my car, but it passed quickly. Another ghost. Exorcised. That night, I sat in my apartment and thought about cruelty. Was I being cruel? I'd ended a relationship that wasn't working. I'd communicated my boundaries clearly. I'd asked to be left alone and removed myself from Emma's life completely. Nothing about that was cruel. It was self-preservation. Emma had called me cruel once before, actually. It was during the donated watch incident. When I'd been upset about Grandpa Joe's watch ending up at Goodwill, when I'd asked why she hadn't checked with me before putting it in the donation box, she'd cried and said I was being cruel for making her feel bad about trying to do a nice thing by cleaning. I'd apologized then, comforted her, told her it was okay, just a mistake. I'd pushed down my own grief about losing the watch to manage her feelings about feeling bad. I wouldn't do that anymore. Spring arrived with unexpected warmth I got. Promoted to lead developer in March, a position that came with a significant raise and the responsibility of managing a small team. My boss, Patricia, called me into her office to deliver the news. You've been doing excellent work, Liam. Honestly, you've seemed more focused the last few months than I've seen you in years. Whatever you're doing differently, keep it up. I thought about telling her that I'd dumped the girlfriend who constantly interrupted my work with Daniel emergencies, but kept it professional instead. Thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity. The raise meant I could afford a better apartment, or save more aggressively, or travel like I'd always wanted. Options. My life was suddenly full of options. Jackson convinced me to try a dating app in April, which I did half-heartedly. I created a profile that was honest about where I was, recently out of a long relationship, focused on self-improvement, looking to meet people casually. I went on 3 dates. The first was with Amanda. Different Amanda from Trivia. She was nice enough, a lawyer who talked extensively about her work. By the end of the date, I knew more about corporate litigation than I'd ever wanted to. We didn't have a second date. The second was with Priya, a graphic designer with an infectious laugh. We had good chemistry, but she mentioned on the date that she was moving to Portland in 2 months for a job opportunity. Neither of us saw the point in starting something with an expiration date. The third was with Nicole, a teacher who seemed great on paper, but spent most of the date talking about her ex-boyfriend and how she was totally over him. She was not, in fact, totally over him. I wished her well and deleted the app. I decided I still wasn't ready. Or maybe I was ready, but not desperate. There was a difference. What I'd learned about myself in those months was this. I'd been so focused on being a good partner to Emma that I'd forgotten to be a good partner to myself. I'd bent myself into shapes that fit her needs while ignoring my own. I'd tolerated behavior I never should have tolerated because I'd convinced myself that's what commitment meant. Never again. I made a list of non-negotiables for any future relationship. It included things like responds to expressed needs without defensiveness, and doesn't cancel plans repeatedly without good reason, and makes me feel valued, not tolerated. Basic things. Things Emma had failed at, but also things I'd failed at with myself. I'd need to show up for myself the way I wanted a partner to show up for me. In May, I ran into Emma. Actually, she was waiting outside my apartment building. I came home from a climbing session to find her sitting on the front steps, looking thinner and older than I remembered. Her hair was different, shorter. She wore a dress I'd never seen before. "How did you find me?" I asked. I asked around. She stood, wiping her palms on her dress. "I needed to see you. Emma, it's been 6 months. What could you possibly need to say?" "I'm sorry." Her voice was small, shaky. "You were right. About everything. Daniel and I. Nothing ever happened between us, but I prioritized him in a way that wasn't fair to you. I called you insecure when you were just asking to be treated with basic respect. I took you for granted because I thought you'd always be there." I adjusted my gym bag on my shoulder. "Okay? That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Emma? That I forgive you? Fine. I forgive you. But that doesn't change anything. I've changed. I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. Dr. Morrison has helped me see patterns in my behavior, how I use other people's problems to avoid dealing with my own stuff, how I gaslight people who try to set boundaries with me. I'm doing the work, Liam. Real work." "Good. I'm genuinely glad you're doing that work. But you need to do it for you, not for me. Is there any chance?" "No." I kept my voice gentle, but firm. "Emma, I don't love you anymore. I don't think I have since before I left you at the station. Maybe even before that, somewhere along the way, you killed whatever we had by making me feel like I was asking for too much, by wanting to matter to my own girlfriend." She started crying, tears running down her face that she didn't bother to wipe away. "I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I miss you. I miss us. I miss having someone who knew me, who I could talk to about anything. You could have talked to me when we were together. Instead, you talked to Daniel." "That's not fair. It's completely fair. You made your choices, Emma. I'm not required to absolve you of the consequences." "I wish you'd just yell at me or tell me you hate me. This cold distance is worse than anger." I sighed. "I don't hate you. I just don't want you in my life. Those are different things. Emma, truly, I wish you the best. I hope therapy helps. I hope you find someone who fits better with you. But my life is better without you in it. I'm happier, healthier, more myself than I've been in years. Please don't contact me again." I walked past her into my building. She didn't follow. That night, I blocked her on the last remaining platform we'd still been connected on, LinkedIn. Then I deleted her contact entirely. It felt like closing the final chapter of a book I'd already finished reading. Summer came with the heat and humidity that made the city shimmer. Jackson's friend Amy invited me to a beach volleyball group she organized on weekends. I went, met more people, expanded my circle. These were young professionals like me, people navigating their 30s with varying degrees of success, all of them welcoming and fun. I stopped checking Emma's social media. I'd blocked her months ago, but sometimes I'd been tempted to look via mutual friends' accounts. The temptation faded entirely. I realized I didn't actually care what she was doing, who she was seeing, how she was spending her time. She'd become a stranger to me. I went on a date in June with a woman named Olivia I met at the climbing gym. She had dark hair she kept in a practical braid, a ready smile, and an impressive ability to tackle advanced routes. We'd spotted each other a few times, exchanged climbing tips, and finally she asked if I wanted to grab coffee after a session. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk through the park. She was direct, funny, and when I mentioned I needed to leave by 9 p.m. for an early work meeting the next day, she said, "No problem. I appreciate you being upfront about it." The contrast to Emma was stark. We went on 4 more dates over the next month. We went to a concert, tried a new restaurant, spent an afternoon at a museum. It was easy and comfortable. No drama, no games. Olivia communicated clearly about what she wanted and expected the same from me. Then she got a job offer in Seattle. "It's an incredible opportunity," she told me over coffee. "Head of product design for a startup that's doing really innovative work. I'd be stupid not to take it." "You should take it," I said, meaning it. "We've only been seeing each other for a month, so this isn't some big dramatic thing, but I like you, Liam. If circumstances were different, I think this could have turned into something real." "I like you too. But you're right. A month isn't enough to ask you to turn down your dream job. Go to Seattle. Do amazing work." We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. She texted occasionally after that, updates about her new city, funny stories from her new job. I responded with genuine interest, but no romantic undertones. It was a clean ending, mature and mutual. It made me realize what was possible when 2 people communicated honestly and prioritized each other's well-being. In July, I flew to Japan for 2 weeks, a trip I'd been planning for years, but Emma had always found reasons to postpone. She'd said the flight was too long, that she didn't like sushi, that she found Japanese culture intimidating, whatever that meant. Every time I'd brought it up, she'd countered with European destinations or beach resorts. We'd gone to those places. We'd never made it to Japan. Tokyo was overwhelming in the best way, a sensory explosion of lights, sounds, flavors, and people. I stayed in a tiny hostel in Shinjuku, sharing a room with travelers from 6 different countries. We swapped stories over cheap beer and convenience store snacks. I visited temples in Kyoto, hiked sections of the Kumanokoto pilgrimage trail, soaked in onsens, ate ramen at tiny counters where I was the only customer. I got lost in Osaka and found a jazz bar where I didn't understand the language, but understood the music perfectly. I hiked Mount Fuji, joining the stream of climbers who make the overnight trek to watch sunrise from the summit. The hike was brutal, steep, cold, crowded, but standing above the clouds as the sun painted the sky was worth every difficult step. I took thousands of photos, but also learned to put the camera down and just experience things. Some moments weren't meant to be captured, only lived. I came back renewed, already planning my next trip. Caroline and Ben invited me over for dinner in August. As we ate pasta on their back deck, Caroline said, "You seem really happy." "I am." "Do you ever think about Emma?" "Sometimes, but not the way you mean. I think about her like I think about high school, something that happened, shaped me, but isn't relevant to who I am now." "That's healthy," Ben said. "A lot of people carry their exes around like ghosts for years." "I could have," I admitted, "but I decided not to. I decided that relationship was a chapter that ended, not a story that defined me." Caroline raised her glass. "To writing new chapters." We clinked glasses as the sun set behind their yard, painting everything gold. In September, almost a year after the train station, I got another message from Daniel. Another apology. Another expression of guilt. This time, I read it. "Liam, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I keep thinking about what happened and my role in it. I was selfish. I was going through a hard time and I let Emma make me her whole world because it felt good to be needed like that. I didn't think about you or what it was doing to your relationship. That was wrong. I want you to know, Emma, and I really aren't in touch anymore. After you left, she tried to lean on me even harder, and I realized how unhealthy the whole dynamic was. I'm in therapy now, too, working through my divorce in more productive ways. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for my part in things. You didn't deserve that." I thought about responding, then decided against it. Some things didn't need a response. Some apologies could be acknowledged privately and left there. I spent September focused on a major project at work, a system redesign I was leading. It consumed my evenings and weekends, but in a way that felt energizing rather than draining. This was what I'd wanted to focus on when Emma and I were together, but her constant needs and Daniel's constant crises had always pulled my attention away. Now, I could dive deep into work when I wanted to. I could spend a whole Saturday debugging code without feeling guilty. I could stay late at the office when inspiration struck without someone at home making passive-aggressive comments about never seeing me anymore. My team delivered the project ahead of schedule. Patricia called it some of my best work. October brought cool weather and changing leaves. I started training for a half marathon, something I'd talked about doing for years, but never committed to. I joined a running group that met Tuesday and Thursday mornings. We ran through the city as it woke up, our breath forming clouds in the pre-dawn air. The training was hard, but satisfying, every week. I could run a little farther, a little faster. My body was getting stronger. So was my mind. I went on a few more dates that fall. A coffee date with Lauren, a marketer who was sweet, but we had nothing in common. Drinks with Rebecca, a fellow software engineer where we talked shop the entire time and never quite connected personally. Dinner with Alyssa, who was lovely but still hung up on her ex-husband. None of them clicked, but I wasn't bothered. I was learning that being alone wasn't the same as being lonely. I had friends, family, interests, work I loved. A partner would be an addition to my life, not the foundation of it. That was the crucial difference. With Emma, the relationship had become my foundation. When it cracked, everything felt unstable. Now, I was my own foundation. Anyone who joined my life would be building on top of something already solid, not providing the support structure itself. In November, exactly 1 year later, I was back on Platform 7. Different circumstances this time, heading to my parents' for Thanksgiving again, but this time alone by choice rather than circumstance. I was early, so I grabbed coffee and sat on the same bench where I'd watched Emma laugh with Daniel a year ago. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. What time does your train get in? 3:47. Same as last year. We'll be there. Can't wait to see you. I smiled and pocketed my phone. The platform filled with travelers, everyone rushing toward their holidays, their lives, their own stories. A couple in their 20s argued quietly near the tracks. An elderly man fed pigeons despite the signs asking him not to. A mother juggled 2 small children and too much luggage. Life happening all around me. A year ago, I'd stood here and made a choice that felt impulsive, but was actually the culmination of months of denial. I'd picked up my bag and walked away from someone who'd stopped choosing me. It had felt dramatic at the time, maybe even harsh. Now, it felt like the most obvious thing I'd ever done. The train pulled in right on time. I boarded, found a seat, and settled in for the journey. As the city faded behind me and the countryside opened up ahead, I thought about Emma one last time. Not with anger or sadness, but with a strange sort of gratitude. She'd taught me what I wouldn't tolerate. She'd shown me that walking away was sometimes the strongest thing you could do. She'd proven that love without respect was just comfortable misery dressed up in shared routines and sunk costs. But more than that, she'd taught me about myself. That I was strong enough to leave, that I could rebuild, that I was worth more than being someone's backup plan. I pulled out the book I'd been reading. A mystery novel Caroline had recommended. The train carried me forward, toward family and celebration, and a future I'd built for myself. Behind me, the station disappeared, and with it, the last ghost of who I'd been when I'd stood there a year ago, patient to a fault, understanding to a detriment, waiting for someone to choose me who never would. I'd stopped waiting. I'd chosen myself. And that made all the difference. The countryside rolled by, the same November browns and grays as last year. But I was different. Fundamentally, completely different. Stronger, clearer, more myself than I'd been in years. My phone buzzed one more time. Jackson. Happy Turkey Day, man. Proud of you for this year. I smiled and typed back, Thanks. Best year of my life. And I meant it.